anticipated for some time, with Dominions Divided having launched over a year ago. The final sourcebook for the opening of the Ilkhan era is here. This time in particular, the book is focused in on the ruins of the Republic, a Clan Wolf-centric coalition being built over it, and the ever-ambitious Capellan Confederation. In this piece, I'm going to be giving a review of what I thought of the book, and there will be spoiling for some of the events in it. We're going to be looking at what I view as the good, the bad, and the ugly. There is a companion novel that has come out along with this book too, which is Trial of Birthright. However, I have not had time to read this yet. This review is not based on its material, but I may review it later. Some may argue you have to read both to appreciate everything, but these are individual products and they need to stand on their own. In this instance, I was provided a PDF copy of this sourcebook by CGL for review. This video is not an advertisement for the book as a product, and is just my thoughts on it. And I have donated the approximate value of this particular tome to the BCSPCA. And with this disclaimer out of the way, let's get started, shall we? To open this up, I want to talk about the non-story related content that is within this book. So, let us begin with probably the best production element of this piece, which is its artwork. In general, Battletech has had a major facelift in regards to its art for some time now, especially in regards to displaying the battle mechs the setting is famous for. And in the Ilkio book, this is no different. It has a fantastic array of new images depicting the events and individual units from within the book. Some of the art, I'd even go as far as to say, is exceptional. So, it is a huge plus for the visuals of Battletech itself, at the very least. The space battle depictions in art, by the way, great. So let's head over to the next portion, which is the general format for the book. It largely follows the same layout as the prior Ilkhan sourcebooks, and there is no radical departure here. The main storyline is displayed on the page, with various pieces of artwork and side content being depicted through prominent text boxes within. It looks good and it reads fairly easily. This particular information product is a total of 215 pages, including all of its sections. The Ilkhan's Eyes Only is also broken up as previous books are, between the main story, the planets, the characters involved, and the factions they lead. There's also another section in this case though, which is discussing specifically around the rest of the Inner Sphere, which I'll be talking a little bit more about later in the review, and there will be spoilers there too. This shines a light on some of the events outside of the new Star League's borders. And there are some incredible components within it. Like, even some things I didn't see coming at all. There are 2 short stories in the book, Vive la République by Brian Young and High Expectations by Michael Ciravella, both of which are enjoyable and help frame the content around them. The former deals with those who are now in rebellion against the Ilkhan, and the latter involves Clan Snowraven. Next up, there is the Rules Annex, and that is here to add supplementary rules for players to really fight across the savage conflicts the book describes. This gives you the necessary mechanics for various forces and commanders, including, yes, Ilkhan Alaric Ward. That is right, you can play as the Ilkhan himself now. It also possesses the appropriate random assignment tables and maps for a campaign. There's only one thing that CGL can be a bit notorious for, however, which is spelling mistakes. Oh yes, while I didn't find an overabundance, and I am by no means a good proofreader myself, even I noticed that the Steiners were referred to as the Lyran Commonwealth at one point. It's not the end of the world by any means, but it is something to be noted that minor spelling issues in these books do seem to be a thing, and that issue has yet to be fully fixed, it would appear. With all of this now being said, let's get into the main course. The thing people wanted an overview of from the start, I suspect. The lore. This is a bit of a tricky one to comment on, because I really don't want to spoil sways of the book. I really don't just want to tease. So I'm going to try to walk a fine line between all of it. And there is something I am going to have to spoil right out of the gate. But it's not really a spoiler to anyone who's been paying attention. And that namely is, if you are expecting the Capellan Confederation to win their military struggle against Clan Wolf, and their band of misfit clans and LARPers, I have some terrible news for you. The Ilkhan does not end with this book, and thus, Daoshen is not successful, and therefore loses the campaign. It can be dressed up with other words, but these are the reality. They had the objective of taking Terra and the surrounding planets. That does not end that way. But that does not mean the book is bad. In fact, it's quite to the contrary, I would say. One thing I really have to stress, especially after Dominions Divided, a book I did not, and still do not regard highly, is that the characters and leaders of the various factions in this sourcebook, for the most part, make active decisions that are plausible and rational in their worldviews. Yes, even the wolves, and no, I'd not argue any faction was given the stupid stick in and of itself either. This is very important, because there is a tendency for groups in Battletech, if the plot demands such things, to act without meaningful justification wholly against their own interests, like the Free Worlds League not invading the Wolf Empire, or basically all of the Rosselhaig Dominion portions of Dominions Divided. So I just wanted to get that out of the way right away. Some people may disagree with me on this, but there is a logic to what these characters do, either for military or political reasons, and that impacts how they guide their armies or advise their superiors. Their interests feel sincere. For world building and characters, this is essential, and so I give the book big props for this. Another solid attribute is that the book does go out of its way to explain how things have changed for a lot of people on Terra in the occupied regions, which is a double-edged sword in some respects, and I will be getting to explain why later, with my more critical views on some elements of the book. But where to really delve in all of this? Well, let's start with that the Republic has fallen. There is an explanation as to what has happened to the levers of power in Stone's Republic after his defeat, and Terra is now under the control of the most beloved character in Battletech's history, Alaric Ward, and his wolves. He has declared a new Star League. But what does that really mean? Well, the people of Terra get to find out when Alaric breaks with the wolves' more recent policies of not enforcing the clan system on occupied worlds. And this is, unsurprisingly, a tactical error. Terra is the birthplace of mankind, and now that the League is here, well, by Kerensky, everyone needs to understand what their perfect society looks like, especially on the homeworld of mankind. More on that in a moment. Another fun fact, apparently Unity City is to be restored to be the glorious symbol of the renewed Star League, and unsurprisingly, its capital. This particular factoid is given to us as we're getting a glimpse of reality of life on Terra, which prior to the Wolf invasion was pretty great, and it also gives a glimpse into what was being rebuilt, and what is changing with the Wolves now being in charge. Yes, the Belters are mentioned in this book as well. The rebellion is ridden out of the gate very well, and is very satisfying, because it turns out telling people who were once wealthy and lived carefree lives that they were labor caste slaves to an uncaring system ruled by a bunch of vat-born scum has consequences. Also, in a writing pivot that really had to happen, yes, Steiner and Merrick collaborators who joined the Wolf Tumen also defected in large numbers. Finally! This was a great thing to see in the book, because it makes absolute sense. But let's move on. I'm repeating this just because we get to see the clash between the Confederation, the real killers of the Republic in the long run, and the new Star League. The book does an excellent job depicting just how powerful Liao had become, as well as going over the massive struggle that emerges during all of this fighting. I will say, victory does feel like it was stolen from House Liao, but inevitably, with all of the actors involved, they just couldn't win. Sadly, even if I felt it should have gone the other way, this is called the Ilkhan era, not the Capellan era. This is just me saying, the Cappies had a largely good outing in this book, but there was never really a chance for them to win, which we've known for a long time. However, one big element as to why this is the case is because one faction has an incredible outing in this book, and in my opinion overshadows both Clan Wolf and the new Star League as a whole, and that is the Raven Alliance. Clan Snowraven and Clan Seafox are in a power struggle within the new organization they are backing. The Ravens, however, are the most pragmatic, though ruthlessly ambitious, of the entire organization. They know how to manipulate the locals, they know how to manipulate the wolves, and the main barrier to their success is the Seafoxes. When they take the reins, the Ravens largely guide themselves around the world's obstacles. All in all, I thought they were fantastic. The Ravens are probably the only clan element in the setting that I really feel invested in following at the moment, outside of G.E. Chistu's Falcons. And I will say that this book played a decent role in creating and cementing that feeling for me. I suppose I also have to go over the other major players here as well, which are Wolf and Seafox. I am sure people are prepared for me to tear into them, but just to be straight about it, this is one of the better depictions of both in recent times, even if the Seafox portion is still as grating as they are insufferable. As a faction, I found that the Foxes at least had some interesting portions to them. Yes, there is still some plot armor, or the guiding hands of the writers in the book, but it is reduced, and most of the new coalition's activities are based around consolidation, and just trying to survive, rather than rolling over every opponent they come across. The intrigue the factions face is the best part of how the sourcebook depicts the story as well. The wolves, for instance, are being increasingly sidelined in their own project, and the Seafoxes are now in competition with the Snow Ravens for control over vital elements of the government. There is a tension there, and the only thing offsetting that is the imminent danger of Lao Daoshin's regime bearing down on them. In addition, the wolves being in debt up to their gills was really funny and fitting to me. Apparently when you're led by a Steiner in the 32nd century, it means you become insolvent, which is fantastic. If I was going to do a beat-by-beat breakdown of the book, this video would be hours and hours long, so we're just going to not do that. But there's still a few things I really want to touch on that I enjoyed within these pages. Perhaps one of the biggest surprises to me was in the faction section of the book, and how much I enjoyed the Jade Falcon and Smoke Jaguar section. Not because I enjoy either part of the Pet Cemetery clans, quite the opposite to be clear, but because I think it was written in such a fun way, especially regarding the Falcons. The part where the Falcons just accepted the prejudices of the Lyrans about the Capellans, which resulted in their humiliating performance, being explained in such a shorthand and amusing way, literally had me break out in a smile while reading it. This gives a good display of why I think the book is good as a whole, as even the factions I sincerely am uninterested in, which does make up a lot of the factions in this book for various reasons, at least have sections and moments written about them that not only work, but are engaging and interesting. That alone made reading this a fun experience. Ilkhan's Eyes Only is crammed with tons of information, and it's very well done overall, at least in my opinion. Like, there is a ton of fighting in this book too. It's hard to even go over all of it. The CCAF and the new Star League really have a lot thrown between one another. Also, as a quick aside, it proves that warships are the most powerful and unstoppable force in Battletech once again, making their continued existence in the setting as a plot and macro storytelling tool the deciding factor behind any campaign. The Around the Sphere part of the book, by the way, excellent. I was shocked that House Orano exists in some form. Though it should be noted, this might not mean what people think it does, as we don't really know what's happening with the Aurigan Reach other than that people were surprised to have seen them after decades. I was also overjoyed that another branch of House Merrick is finally trying to seize power from the criminally incompetent leadership the League currently has. This overall is my favorite section of the book. It shows a ton of cool plot lines that we're going to see soon, hopefully. And a ton are extremely exciting, just like the two I mentioned. Yes, Periphery fans, Catalyst has opted to have the Aurigans exist in some form, apparently. The day is yours! Though there still is an unfortunate element, in that I do have to go over a couple points that I did not enjoy, because it's not all great. Ilkhan's eyes only really needed to sell the new Star League, in my opinion, and to me personally, it falls flat in this regard. Anastasia's band of SLDF soldiers who are not wolves just feels really strange, and the entire concept that people would really pretend that this is somehow some legitimate expression of the original Star League honestly just never jives with me. They just aren't. And they really don't sincerely feel that way, at least to me, as such. It's slapping a popular brand on something kinda janky, and just hoping it works out. It's probably the thing I didn't enjoy the most about the book. As a full disclosure, I did feel this way before reading this. It just did nothing to change my view on it, and only really further cemented it. Apparently, the Star League has a better depiction in Michael Saravella's new novel, Trial of Birthright. But I don't know if that will change my opinion either, but we'll see. Storytelling is more often than not about characters, and if someone likes those characters, they'll often like the factions they are associated with, or the events they are associated with, even if what they're doing doesn't really, well, work in how people, or populations, or how macro events take place. This is what runs into a brick wall for me, because I cannot switch my brain off, which is just telling me the entire time that these people are just LARPing as a long-dead empire, but it just doesn't feel authentic to me. It's the same issue I originally had with the people of the Free Worlds League being cool with being part of the Wolf Empire. It's just been kind of transplanted, albeit a little bit more cleanly, into this new region. The bond cord juice, sadly, is apparently still strong. But in the grand scheme of the whole book, these issues do not ruin it for me. Perfection is the enemy of the good, and there is no such thing as perfect anyway. These are just my biggest points of criticism, but I should point out, the Star League one feels really necessary to have worked out. And while I'm sure it will work for some people, the fact it doesn't work for me is the one big slight that I will say this book had to kind of accomplish, at least for me. Did I enjoy Ilkhan's Eyes Only? Yes, definitely. I think it is a well put together book overall. My own personal tastes do mean that this isn't really a story I, of course, would have wanted to see, as I'd preferred the Capellan Confederation to win, if for no other reason that it would have ended the new Star League. But looking at it objectively, overall, it does everything needed to move the story forward in the direction that Catalyst wants, and does so in a way that is largely not ham-fisted in its attempt. There's a lot of lore here, there's a lot of pages here, make no mistake, there's tons of fascinating stuff to delve into. The inner politicking in this book, though, is the best part of it, as we get descriptions of how the Sea Foxes and Ravens are positioning themselves to exploit the new Star League, and ideally the bureaucracy they are building to their own fullest desires and ambitions. The military campaigns are extensive, and it is very much the end of the last Dark Age story in this region. The lowest points are the Star League itself, as I mentioned earlier, though I am sure that that is just my own personal taste. I was super enthralled with what the Ravens were doing in the book. I thought the Capellans were interesting, and the Wolves did not detract from my experience at all reading this book. That, by the way, is almost a miracle, because usually if Clan Wolf is in something, I thoroughly don't enjoy it halfway through. In this case, the Wolves did not ruin this for me, which is a big thumbs up, I assure you. The Sea Foxes, not my favorite part of the book, but not to such an extent that I felt that they detracted from it. Perhaps some of my opinions on the parts of this book I didn't enjoy will change after I read Trial of Birthright. But as I pointed out in this piece, my problem isn't really an issue with characters, it's these things in terms of how they are a macro story as a whole. But if you want to be informed as to where the Ilkhan era is going, if you want to see the Snow Ravens in action, especially this, or you want to see the fate of the Capellan Confederation, I think you'll really enjoy this book overall. If you're a Wolf fan, or a Sea Fox fan, once more, you'll enjoy the book too. If you really love the idea of the clan-led Star League manifesting itself, you'll probably enjoy that part of it as well. It's an important book for the foundations of what is to come, quite clearly. And it finishes setting the stage for confrontations in the future. So in short, I do recommend checking out Ilkhan's Eyes Only if you're invested in the Ilkhan era. It's worth the read. Is it as good as Tomorrow Rising? No. Is it Dominions Divided 2.0? Also definitely no. It's somewhere in between, but it's definitely more positive than negative. Well, that was a lot of fun. First of all, I want to thank you all for joining me here today. Remember, if you enjoyed this video and you enjoy the content I'm making on the channel, don't forget to hit like and don't forget to subscribe. I also want to give a huge thank you to all of the channel members. These videos are only made possible because of viewers like you. Ilkhan's Eyes Only, by the way, comes out today, the day this video has dropped. I'll have a link to it in the top pinned comment if you're interested. With that out of the way, I was surprised in some ways by Ilkio, so I was very happy to do this review for it. One thing I stressed in the video though, and I will stress once more here on the outro, it's not what I would personally want to see, I'm just trying to examine it from a point of view of, does this make sense? Is there stuff enjoyable here? And it does seem to tick those boxes. I have, since I made this review, read Trial of Birthright, and I will be doing a review on that as well. So you'll want to take a look for that, because that will be the next video on the channel. But with all of that, what do you all think? Are you excited? Are you interested? Let me know in the comment section below.